Live and right here, finally, from behind the Iron Curtain over there, is my pal and partner, Ted Goodman. Ted?
Thanks for allowing me on camera tonight, Mayor. I,
Well,
you know, you don't
figure
want
the
the
children,
ratings to sink here, but
well, the children are all asleep.
well, thanks for having me and happy
Yeah.
President's Day, sir.
Happy President's Day. And in honor of President's Day, we have my favorite president that I would have known. I mean, we have to go into history to challenge him, Ronald Reagan. And I think without any doubt, at least from my point of view, the greatest president of the 20th century. And I would think Democrats could only challenge that with Franklin Roosevelt. In fact, my first real talk at the Reagan Library, which impressed Nancy Reagan, with whom I must say I became a personal friend,
That's right.
was a lecture I gave when I was mayor. I was named, they give an award to a Republican every year. And one of the years I was mayor, I got that award. And I gave a lecture, and the lecture was, if I could say so myself, somewhat academic. And it compared, basically, the premise of it was that Roosevelt was basically the most influential president of the first half of the 20th century. And Reagan was the most influential of the second half, and certainly the turn of the century, because their political viewpoint lived on after them. So, gosh, I mean, through up to Clinton, Roosevelt was the defining president of the Democrat Party. And Reagan is still very much quoted by Trump, and to a very large extent, Trump is the most similar president we've had since Reagan. In fact, I would take the Reagan for his 4 years and the Trump for his 4 years and say, very interesting comparison. And I consider Trump to be, and I think should he get reelected, which I think he will, he'll be one of our greatest presidents. But his first 4 years certainly challenged my heroes. My hero had a second 4 years, which of course he did one of the things that very few presidents did. He liberated millions of people. Very few American presidents have been liberators. Of course, George Washington, whose day really we celebrate today. This used to be only his day.
It's his birthday?
No, the 22nd is.
Okay.
February used to be Washington's day, and we had a separate day for Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
But now we can't afford 2 days for our two greatest presidents. This year, I would say, is our third greatest president. And why we can't, I don't know. And we take down statues of Washington. Washington. I mean, Washington is one of the great world figures. Washington is revered all over the world.
That's right.
And it's not, myth. George Washington was the first president of the first country anywhere like ours. Right? This was a total experiment. He did win a war that nobody expected anyone could win, and he won a lot of it on personal loyalty to him.
That's right.
As a man and a leader. Those men wouldn't have fought for anybody else. I mean, I could say so much about George Washington that isn't myth, because I've spent a great deal of time studying him. Probably the only president I've studied more, but of course I work for him, is the one you're looking at right behind me, or Abraham Lincoln. But to take down Washington's statue because he had slaves that that troubled him for his whole life, as they did Jefferson. And because it troubled them, we eventually got to emancipation a lot faster. It's so ignorant what they do. They want to change something that really had something to do with slavery. Change the name of the Democrat Party.
Bingo.
Had a lot more to do with slavery than Washington and Jefferson, who were looking for ways to stop it. The Democrat Party was looking for ways to spread it. Whew.
That's right.
Today is President's Day. It began as Washington's birthday, separate Lincoln's birthday. Now we put them together. Now it's all the presidents. Now we should definitely be allowed to exclude certain presidents for President's Day. Like if we got to celebrate Biden on President's Day, I'm not celebrating President's Day.
You don't have to celebrate him today.
I don't think we should celebrate presidents who get a lot of Americans needlessly killed. And he does. I mean, every one of the fentanyl deaths, I would say, you could put right on his conscience. And what were they? 70,000 2 years ago, 120,000 this year. without the open border, they were going, fentanyl deaths were going down. Trump's last year, 420,000. Biden's the last year just ended 3.2 million. That's a different world. But Biden has brought in more illegals. And if you put them all in one state, the illegal state of Biden, they'd be the fourth or fifth largest state in the country.
Goodness.
And we don't know who the hell they are. Reagan, I work for, and I am not at all, nor do I pretend to be objective on the subject of Ronald Reagan. But this is the father of Star Wars. This is the father of the Iron Dome in Israel. Do you know who was a vicious opponent of Star Wars? None other than the stupidest president in the history of the country, Joseph Biden, when he was the dumbest man in the Senate. Joseph Biden was probably one of Ronald Reagan's biggest foes. And I can tell you, in those days, we all considered him to be a jackass, complete jackass, not a Democrat jackass, like a real jackass. I didn't realize until my friend Jim from Brooklyn, who calls my radio show, his connections to the Communist Party, Biden's connections. Now you see them. But let me just read you a little something about Biden in those days.
Yeah.
And the president here.
Yeah.
Whose boots he couldn't even lick. In the early 1980s, the U.S. was engaged in a debate over the funding of the Contras, a group of Nicaraguan freedom fighters attempting to overthrow the communist regime of Daniel Ortega, who has tortured those people now for like 2 generations. Mr. Biden was a leading opponent of President Ronald Reagan's efforts to fund the Contras, the anti-communist group.
That's right.
He also opposed Reagan's efforts to send military assistance to the pro-American government in El Salvador, which at the time was battling the FMLN, a Soviet-supported Marxist group. That's 2 out of 2. For the communists, against the Americans. Joe Biden. Joseph Robinette Biden left back in the 3rd grade. Throughout his career, Mr. Biden has consistently opposed modernization of our strategic nuclear forces. He was a fierce opponent of Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative. Mr. Biden voted against funding it numerous times, saying, the president's continued adherence to SDI constitutes one of the most reckless and irresponsible acts in the history of modern statecraft. So if you think he's just become stupid, you're wrong. He's always been stupid, and he's always been pro-communist. It turns out that Star Wars, that reckless and irresponsible program, has probably saved more Israeli lives, Jewish lives, than anything else as Iron Dome. That's what Iron Dome is. Iron Dome is a mini version of Star Wars, and there would not be an Iron Dome if it wasn't for the man behind us. So unlike Biden, who is now about to turn completely on the state of Israel, so that more Jews get killed and more Israelis get killed, the man behind me right here, by sticking with Star Wars, was able to develop things like the Iron Dome. I have a letter from Prime Minister Netanyahu to Mrs. Reagan, about 8 years ago, thanking her husband for saving so many Jewish lives. Wow. By sticking with Star Wars. When the Democrat Party, the New York Times, and all those people who oppose President Donald Trump tortured him, made him a fool for being in favor of Star Wars. And one of the reasons I knew he had more brains in his little pinky, in his little index finger, than they had in their entire head, and certainly common sense, is when he described it as simply as this. If a missile can knock down an airplane.
Yeah.
And he would ask the stupid Democrat the question. And the stupid Democrat would say yes.
Yeah.
Then a missile that's a little bit faster and a little bit more intelligent can knock down a missile. That's all it is. And they would say, oh, we're still against it. Like they do with Trump. And if it weren't for him, we would not have a missile defense. Wouldn't have it. And they were all opposed to it. They used to make, and Biden was the worst, in large part because he was the most ignorant and said the stupidest things. The others said slightly more intelligent things, and he finally won them all over, except Mr. Moron.
He won them all over. And of course, you've seen the Iron Dome up close. You know how effective it can be.
I had the great honor of BB, who's been a friend of mine since 1985, when I was working for President Reagan.
Wow.
And researching a Nazi case. When I met him, and I really did it for the benefit of a woman that I love dearly, which was Mrs. Reagan. And it was when the first Iron Dome was unveiled, not as good as it is now, but it was 95% effective. And he let me watch it when we watched it in operation. And then I asked him if he wouldn't mind, writing a letter to Mrs. Reagan, saying what he wanted to say about the debt that we all have to Ronald Reagan for this. And basically he wrote, I don't remember exactly the words now, but it's in the Reagan library. It basically said, he used a number too, but thousands of Jewish people would be dead today if it wasn't for your husband. So his great work lives after him.
Wow. And so obviously Ronald Reagan.
And he knew the whole story. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
he lived in America.
Yeah.
He knew the whole story of how Reagan had been ridiculed, made fun of. It was a source of great strength for him. Wow. So Reagan has always been a source of great strength for him, as it is for Trump.
Yeah. And of course yeah. And you're famous for looking up to Ronald Reagan, considering him one of your heroes. But on this President's Day, I'm curious, Mayor, can we go through maybe some of the other consequential presidents in your mind throughout American history? Who are some of the I guess there's two different lists here, right?
I already mentioned the two. This day is officially
Washington and Lincoln.
Originally Washington's birthday.
Yeah.
Then they merged in Lincoln. Then they put in all of the presidents. I would say they have to count as the two most consequential presidents. I think, although I have great reservations about Roosevelt because of the infiltration of communism in his administration, he did liberate a good deal of Europe. And I always consider liberation one of the greatest things an American president can do.
FDR.
FDR. That's why, this man liberated all of Eastern Europe from the consequences of FDR.
Oh, yeah.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
But FDR
Yalta.
liberated Europe, France, whatever. That has to be a great achievement.
Sorry, was FDR at Yalta? Sorry.
Yeah, FDR sold us out at Yalta.
Okay. Yeah,
at Yalta, and before that at Potsdam, when he sold out to Joseph Stalin against the advice of Winston Churchill, largely because, and nobody would want to admit this, he was surrounded by dedicated communists who hated this country, just like we have dedicated communists who hate this country that surround the demented moron in the White House. And by the way, by Yalta, Roosevelt might not have been any more competent than Biden is today.
I was going to say
it was a month and a half before his death.
And back then, the press were in on covering for it.
They didn't wheelchair. They covered up everything, and they covered up the fact that in that last campaign for president, he was beginning to show signs of dementia. Just as he was selling out the country. Sound familiar?
And so he wasn't really in charge. Other people were making decisions.
He just took back greatest president. He comes out 50-50. He did as much damage as he did good.
FDR.
Yeah, I mean, someone else could have won that war, who was a true American without
giving up
without the enemies of the United States surrounding him because of his narcissism and ego, and brought us out of it without it's leading to a Cold War.
Was there a scenario where we don't give Eastern Europe to the Soviets?
Republicans opposed it immediately.
At the time.
Churchill opposed it.
Churchill opposed it.
Churchill opposed it completely. Churchill is alleged to have said to Roosevelt, "We kind of only make him believe we were friends with Stalin."
Yeah,
and it's not for real, frankly.
Well, didn't Stalin double cross Hitler?
No, Hitler double crossed Stalin.
Okay. So
was happy.
That's right. Hitler opened up the second front.
Remember this.
That's right.
Stalin was Hitler's ally.
Yeah.
When they talk about Nazism and communism, they were allies. And Hitler, after he defeated France, took France, drove England off the continent at Dunkirk, and was supposed to attack the UK. turns around and attacks his ally. Russia.
Wow.
Russia was perfectly content to be there with the genocidal maniac Hitler. After all, Stalin was a genocidal maniac.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hitler, what was that? Why would
Stalin, I think, without any doubt, killed more people, both his own and
Yeah.
other people, than Hitler.
Oh, that was brutal, the Western Front or
And
the Eastern Front.
and the Chinese communists have killed more than any. I mean, they've 80 million, 90 million. The guy who got all the applause in San Francisco that Newsom gave the great parade for, and turned
President Xi, China.
and turned San Francisco into a red Chinese cheering gallery. That guy presides over the regime, has killed more of its own people than any in modern history. This communism thing is extraordinarily dangerous, and the Democrats have always been either infiltrated by it, soft on it, unaware of its danger, silly and romantic about it. How about all the idiot Hollywood people that would go to Cuba with Castro? Castro in the very early days used to kill people who had AIDS until he found out it would cost him, Hollywood money.
Yeah.
But originally his whole approach to AIDS was they were, just get rid of them. Well, I can't tell you the names he called them either.
Is this similar to
similar to the morons who walk around, the gay and lesbian morons who walk around cheering for Hamas that would throw them off the top of a building in a second.
So do these people know better, or do they not understand, like the story of the Romanovs in Russia, right? Where do they understand that at the end of this,
Castro,
they get eaten up, they get eaten alive too?
Castro was smart enough to hide it to some extent. He certainly didn't make a big deal out of it. And he did. And then when he realized it was dangerous for public, he hid it. Hamas doesn't hide its hatred for gay people or its hatred for transsexuals. My God.
Yeah. They don't.
Throwing you to death.
Yet the American left, I mean, they're behind this cause, right? They from the river to the sea. It doesn't make any sense.
Idea of how animalistic and how barbarian they are. When you look at their approach to women, I mean, even the women's groups, it's totally ridiculous to women. How about the girl who was killed in Iran because a little of her hair was showing?
Yeah, and that's the thing when we talk about Gaza and Palestine, a lot of times they leave out the fact that Iran's behind a lot of this, right? They're Iran's puppet.
I would say that Iran is behind 80% of it, sure. I would say Iran is a driving force, and one of the biggest funding sources for Iran in the last 3-4 years is Joseph R. Biden, and before that, his boss, currently Obama. Obama used to give him cash.
Yeah, literally pallets of cash.
Must have learned that from some drug dealer in Chicago. Must have told him to do that.
Pallets of cash.
So who the hell uses cash? Drug
people that don't want you to know. Yeah,
criminals and people who take bribes.
So you can't trace the money.
I never knew people. And Fannie, Big Fannie uses cash.
And Mayor, what was that money used for that we gave Iran under Obama?
To kill Americans.
And how come we can't talk about that? Why?
The money that Obama gave a lot of it went to Soleimani.
Yeah.
Who killed Americans.
Yeah.
Many. Was done in by Trump.
Yeah.
Biden opposed that.
But in our own government at times wouldn't want us talking about that. The fact that Iran is out there killing Americans. Yet a lot of that's considered classified.
Obama,
it's crazy.
And Biden and their coterie have a love affair with the regime of terror.
Yeah.
I mean, have a love affair with terrorists.
Yeah.
And with the regime of terror.
Yeah.
I think if Biden had continued the strict sanctions on Iran that Trump had put into effect, there's a very good chance the Ayatollah will be overthrown by now, because they were protesting every day.
Yep.
And it was way beyond just the political people. It was
that's right.
It was the teachers, it was the truck drivers, it was the bus drivers, and it was in every part of Iran. And they're not beloved anyway. This isn't like, there's a very big difference between Palestine and Iran. Palestine's not a country. It never was. Is it clearly even a people? It's never been a country. There's never been a Palestine. They want to create it.
That's right.
And they lived in Jordan and they lived in Egypt. Egypt is now building a wall to make sure they stay out.
Yeah.
Israel is building a wall right where the Israelis are going to go and eliminate Hamas, which I understand the so-called president of the United States, because he is clearly a traitor, is going to go to the UN and
That's right.
ban Israel from taking Rafah.
That's right.
Which means Israel's goal at the very beginning has been clearly stated. It isn't like Biden. Biden had, like, what's Biden's goal in Ukraine? Well, he says he wants to drive Russia out, but he doesn't give them what they need to drive Russia out. After all, remember, he's been paid by both sides.
Yeah.
He's gotten a lot of money from Ukraine. He's got a lot of money from Putin's friends in Russia. In fact, the one who gave him a lot of money, he's never put sanctions on.
And at this point, when it comes to the so-called president, Mayor, is it fair to ask not what's Biden's goal in Ukraine, but what's the goal of the people controlling Biden right now?
People who want to destroy the U.S. and have a one world government, the communists, or whatever you want to call them, nihilists, communists, fascists, the ones who don't believe in a system of justice that allows the same justice for Republicans and Democrats. The group that wants to take children away from their parents and mutilate them, not tell the parents. That's the people we're talking about. That's the people that are running Biden. And they picked a completely evil, amoral. He doesn't even, the word amoral doesn't even describe him. A guy who's sold himself, so many times there's nothing left of him.
That's right.
It's hard to know who's compromised him, but everybody has. He's got millions from Russia. He's got millions from Ukraine. He's got millions from China, and he's making decisions about them. All that seems to be in their interest, not in ours. And what he's doing in Ukraine is positively cruel.
He's getting people killed on all sides.
He's worked it to a stalemate, which means they could kill each other for the next 10 years. The way Clinton did with Arafat. And then when Clinton finally gave Arafat everything he wanted, Arafat said, "No, I want the hostilities to go on so I get the money." I'm very afraid that that's what's happening here. And I'm not sure, I can't be absolutely positive, but I'm very suspicious of the fact that we've given them 130 billion. They're not able to win the war on 130 billion. They want another 60, and they don't tell us they're going to win the war with that.
That's right. What progress have they made with all the money we've given them? It's like they're always out of ammo. They never have enough.
There's no way to know. There's no way to know, because Biden turned down every suggestion of putting money aside for accounting. And of course, this is the worst government to do that with. I don't know how many governments owe us foreign aid that they haven't accounted for. But I do know as of 2017, they owed us $3 billion in foreign aid they never accounted for. And back in 2016, when they started trying to account for it, the Obama administration told them not to do it because it would have gotten Soros in a lot of trouble. And of course, Ukraine government was largely a puppet of Obama.
It's absurd. And
the current guy running the Ukraine, who we're funding,
he doesn't want this to end. He doesn't want the war to end, does he?
Everything we know about him tells us he's corrupt. He was a product of the most corrupt person in Ukraine, Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky was his boss, his financier, the guy who paid for his election, the guy he brought back from exile after he won. Kolomoisky was the major money launderer in Ukraine and could tell you where all the bodies are buried. He could also point out all the Biden offshore bank accounts that the FBI has never bothered to ask about, even though there's a witness offering to locate them. He also, in his own country, knows the complete story of the corruption. Nobody ever asks if Biden got as much money as he did for getting Burisma out of trouble in bribery.
Yeah.
Hunter and
Angela.
How much did the president of Ukraine get? Think he did it for nothing? There's a reason why it's the second most corrupt country in the world.
And we hear...
You don't think there were bribes involved in that? Of course there were. Do you know who knows them all? The guy that runs the country, who therefore can squeeze everybody in the country.
Yeah.
Like he can say to Biden, I want that extra 60 billion, or maybe people will get to see the rest of the pictures that Giuliani doesn't have.
Yeah.
I bet they're a lot worse than the ones I have.
And notice how the mayor says the second most corrupt country in the world. I'm afraid to ask what the most corrupt country is, and afraid where the U.S. will be if not now.
Honestly, these evaluations, you never know how true they are.
Yeah.
They used to rate Russia as the most corrupt.
Okay.
And then they'd rate Ukraine right behind it.
Yeah.
Only because Ukraine was smaller.
I'm sure Russia in the 90s was the most corrupt place on earth. The Russia after the Soviet breakup.
Although I have to tell you, credit to Kolomoisky, the money laundering in Ukraine was always considered to be superior.
Oh, wow.
As well as the hacking.
And they have all these resources. So there was a lot of that happening in Ukraine post-Soviet Union breakup, right? Because of all the resources.
A lot of the resources, yeah. And they became very good at hacking, and they became fabulous at money laundering. Kolomoisky was a world-class money launderer. He ran a bank does run a bank called Privat Bank. It's worth about $30 or $40 billion. It's the second or third largest legitimate bank in Ukraine. And then its illegitimate bank is 3 times the size. And it's made up of hundreds, if not thousands, of computers of phony companies.
Jeez.
So if you're going to do what the Bidens did in February of 2016 and take about $3 million of a $15 million laundered payment, of which money went to Joe Biden as vice president, that the Latvian government actually ran this down. And there's a copy of it. You can go to my 4th or 5th podcast and you can see it if you'd like to. It's been available for 5 years for prosecution. Hunter Biden, Devin Archer, Kerry's stepson, and a certain amount listed for the vice president. And it was money went from Ukraine to Latvia to Cyprus to various parts of the world. Some of it into the bank account of Biden's company with a certain amount earmarked for Joe Biden.
That's right. And you have, and of course, this is something you've been covering for years. And you've
been prosecuted 7-8 months before he ran for president.
And we still have those are the early podcasts for Common Sense. You can still find those. Go to rudygiulianics.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can scroll over to the Common Sense section of the YouTube channel, and these are the early episodes. These are the first 6 to 7 episodes, right? There's, I think, at least 3 of them in there where the mayor, again, this is all relevant to now, right? And you can go watch those podcasts. I mean, we should bring those back out.
Part of this is that if this were a country with a system of justice that we have had during most of our history, without the corrupted top of the Democrat Party ruining it, I think beginning with Biden and Holder, Biden would have been prosecuted before he ran for president and put in jail for bribery, for money laundering, for the kid, for all of that, plus a lot more.
Wow.
But no, I mean, we have what we euphemistically call a 2-tier system of justice, which is a nice way of saying we have no justice.
That's right.
That's the very definition of justice, is that it's equal.
Yeah, that's right.
2-tier means, I'm sorry, you're a fascist country.
And speaking of injustice, maybe now's a good time to bring up our friend, Mike Lindell, someone who's been
the subject of some of the worst, except for the president. I mean, it's terrible what they've done to him.
That's right. So we want to take a moment now and ask all of you to visit mypillow.com. Be sure to use that promo code Rudy and pick up a MyPillow product today. Again, slippers, pillows, sheets, comforters. My goodness, those slippers are so comfy. And his products, 100% American made. And you know you're getting a great product, but you're also supporting someone who just is doing so much for the country. And not only are you supporting Mike, but of course, use that promo code Rudy, and you're supporting America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, and everything we're doing here. We can get him another pillow. Not that this man never sleeps. I don't know what are you going to use that pillow for? You don't need to
prop my head up so
he can prop his head up and keep working on the iPad. This man is working day in and day out on behalf of all of us and the country.
We're in terrible.
Look, he doesn't have to do this, folks, right? I mean,
no, but we're in a terrible place right now.
You don't take vacations. I've noticed that about you.
Take a vacation.
You don't though.
I can't. It's not. Wouldn't do me any good. I would just think about this all the time. You don't know how hurt deep down in my soul I am about what they've done to the justice system, and I'm hurt about what they've done to me. But then I look at. I don't know who taught me this, but maybe my dad, maybe my mom. I'm not sure. 'Cause when I had cancer, I spent about a day or two feeling sorry for myself, and then I thought about the people who had much worse cancer than I did, who had no hope at all, who were paralyzed because of war. And I said, "Boy, you're being a jackass, feeling sorry for yourself so much. You got a chance." And the same thing is true here. I mean, I have a chance to do this. I have a chance to speak out, and I have a chance to take what they're doing to me and use it, hopefully, to save the country. A lot of people just get pounded. And what are those poor people in January 6th people?
There's still people in jail.
I don't know what the hell they did, even if some of the exaggerations were true, to justify being held without bail. I mean, we in New York, we let just about murderers go free. We let all those people who beat up the cops. Bragg, who's another communist, who just think of the DAs that prosecuted Trump, and you just throw the cases out. Bragg is going to do an honest case. Soros's boy, who lets all those 12, 13 people, you see them kicking the cops. He let them all out immediately. They spent less. They spent more time kicking the cops than they did in the courthouse.
That's right.
Poof, right out. Then he a week later, after everybody gets angry at him, he makes some pious speech about how terrible it was. Now then he can't find them.
Yeah.
And I mean, this guy has gotten people in New York killed because of his irresponsible behavior.
That's right.
And our complete useless weakling of a governor and a mayor don't know how to get rid of him. He'd have been gone the first day that any decent person became governor. Zeldin, I remember when my son was running in the primary, his first promise was, first thing I do is get rid of him.
And that's the governor has the power to remove
he used to tell him, Andrew, I just want one thing. You let me deliver
the news.
You let me deliver the news to him. Yeah.
It's so bad. I mean, I for you of all people to watch what's happening to you.
Where the DA's office was. Bob Smith occupied it when I was U.S. Attorney.
Oh, that's right. The Manhattan DA. That's interesting. So it's
right across the street.
And it's for Manhattan? It's for Manhattan or the city of New York?
Manhattan.
So there's 5 DAs?
There are 5
There's
DAs.
one DA for every borough/county?
Yeah, a couple of the others are just like him, and a couple aren't, thank God.
Wow. And they're appointed, and the governor has the power to replace?
Can remove them for not doing their job.
Okay, that's right. You got to remove them for
not doing their job. Which he announced on day one when he said he wasn't going to enforce the law. He ended up listing all kinds of laws that he won't enforce. Now, a prosecutor has what's called prosecutorial discretion. That's an individual case. You can't say, "Oh, I'm not going to prosecute any robberies. I just decided robbery is illegal." Who are you, the legislature?
It's just so.
I mean, these people are
hard to watch.
Complete damn communists, fascists, Nazis. What would you like to call them? They're not lawful, decent people. And this guy is a complete product, like 50 or 60 of them are, of Soros, who's probably created more unnecessary murder, particularly of young Black people in this country, if anyone. And why the Black civil rights groups that don't go crazy over him, I don't know. I mean, look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia, both know, since they've had Krasner as the DA, set a record for the most murders in the history of one of our oldest cities. It took a Soros DA to set that record. Los Angeles, San Francisco, these are all places where 20%, 30%, 40%, 50, 70, 80% increase in murder. St. Louis,
DC,
little Rochester, New York.
Rochester
becomes per capita the crime capital of New York, over New York City, because it has a Soros DA.
And
why he wants to kill us, I don't know. But I think I know why. He wants to create chaos, so we become communists. Marx taught him that. Also, he wants his DAs in the right place, so when they have riots, they're all set free. No one bothers to point out that the people that were set free were, by and large, set free with Soros-owned DAs. So in 2020, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, whatever. None of those people went to jail. But they made sure that they were in Democrat-controlled cities when they conducted their riots, just like they made sure they stole the election in Democrat-controlled cities, where when they say, "Oh, you lost every case in court."
That, by the way, they still say that.
Court.
You never got a hearing.
Court.
You never got a
The
hearing.
Supreme Court's a court. Let me tell you their ruling.
You didn't get you never got a hearing on the facts. You never got to trial.
The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that where it says in the law of Pennsylvania that a member of both parties has to be present when you count the ballot, it was good enough if the person were present and 40 feet away and got to see nothing, as long as they were present. Of course, one judge in the middle of the appellate process ruled that that was absurd, that present had to have a meaning. And the meaning was to look at the ballot and verify it. But the Supreme Court of Philadelphia, in a 4-3 decision, decided that present means being a potted plant, just sitting there, looking at your iPad, but not looking at the ballot. And in that way, they were able to count 800,000 paper ballots, and no Republican ever got a chance to look at the paper. Same thing in Georgia. I never got to see any of the paper. You show me that paper, I'll show you the fraud.
And by the way, we've never had a trial on the facts, right?
They couldn't stand
Anywhere.
trial.
I mean, but you've never had the opportunity to.
They never allowed our expert to ever look at the paper that was brought in.
Yeah.
No Republican. I mean, no Republican ever got to look at that paper, and certainly no one who had the capacity to examine it. I mean, the paper used by these states was ordered from a certain stationer. So if all of a sudden your ballot shows up with an ordinary piece of paper and not from the XYZ stationer who printed all of the mail-in ballots, we got a pretty good shot that it's been, it's part of that big group that was driven down to Pennsylvania. We found one, we probably didn't see the others, or part of the little factory, big factory that was alleged to be operating in Fulton County, home of Fannie, quite contrary, the one who likes to keep lots of cash around. I don't understand.
Now talk
why,
about.
I don't understand
Wow,
why.
Talk about some.
I don't understand why. Why couldn't they cross-examine the father? The guy was an original member of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers was dedicated to the killing of police officers. This is who brought her up. Now, I mean, I'm sorry, you're entitled to know that. She talks to him every day. The guy has made statements that are horrendous. If I had hair, my hair would come off listening to them. And they let him get up there like he's a good old grandpa. Good old grandpa spent the early years of his life wishing like hell that every white cop was killed, or maybe even black cop. That's where he came from. That's what the Black Panthers were. And they have a great influence on Black Lives Matter. A lot of the ones who have been pardoned, the murderers who have been pardoned, advise Black Lives Matter. I mean, we're going to stop being babies and silly. These are really bad people. And give me a break. She reimbursed them with money.
With cash. In cash.
Yeah. How about the following statement? We'll go dig it out later.
Yeah. We got some clips here.
Because she made a statement again that I'm very, very suspicious of the judge. Shouldn't say it. The judge could put me in jail for the rest of my life. But nobody picks up when she says, "Oh, I took all this money from my first campaign." You what?
In cash. That's right.
You what?
Yeah.
You crunk. I mean, Moya was there too.
Yeah, he was there. He had a good question.
These guys. I've been training these guys. I mean, I sit there, I go nuts as a lawyer I used to cross-examine. The best thing that I did was cross-examine.
Let's hear.
And I am not making this up. You can go back and read the New York Times if you want. But I'd have ruined her on the witness stand. She would have left the witness stand confessing. I guarantee you, I'd get her to confess because she's a weakling. The old man, by the time you got out of there, you would know you were talking to a guy with a warped head.
So as U.S. attorney, did you how many cases did you try where you were actually
a lot of
litigating?
cases before I was U.S. attorney. I tried a lot of cases as an assistant U.S. attorney. I was not a U.S. attorney in name only.
A lot of them now are
I was
in name.
probably one of the most active trial lawyers in the U.S. attorney's office.
Now,
And I
is that uncommon?
prosecuted and convicted a congressman when I was 28 years old. And I got him to confess on a witness stand.
Oh, I got to pull up the New York Times article for that. The guy was crying. I think he was crying on the stand.
I have no tolerance for liars. I despise official liars.
That's right. And so,
you know that, Dr. Maria, you found that out this morning, right?
So now if we could.
No, Dr. Maria is actually the most honest person I've met.
Thank you, honey. That's very nice.
Dr. Maria is the best. And on that note, we'll hear from one of our great sponsors, something very important to you, Tunnel to Towers.
I'll talk to Frank today. And Dr. Maria maybe wants to say a little something later about that because it's a thing they've been doing for quite some time. And well, you listen and you make the contribution, and then we're going to add this to it. Okay. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Behind you, it's hard to see, is a map of Israel.
We can zoom in, actually.
But we're going to use our big map.
Okay.
I'll bring it over here a little closer. You tell me when it's in the picture. Dr. Maria, you want to help me?
It is in the picture.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's the only part we need actually down here.
Okay.
Biden is in the process of selling out Israel big time. This is like being a rat fink. You know what a rat fink is? Yeah, it's a real
Biden.
Joe Biden. It's a real creep. He must have been a horrible kid. I really do think he should challenge Trump to go behind the.
Remember he said that?
I'd like to go back there with him, to tell you the truth, if the Secret Service would let me. So that's Rafah down here. So this is Rafah. This is what's in dispute. So Israel has taken control of everything north of that. You want to shoot up? You can see the whole northern part. I mean, and really, the heart of the Hamas operation was up here in the northern part of Gaza. This is all Israel right around it. And this is where the executions, the innocent people took place. This is where the 1,200 children, women, and older men were killed, raped, dismembered, raped after they were dead, shot in front of their children, tortured in front of their parents. This is where it all happened, right here. These are the kibbutzim where they happen. Kibbutzim are innocent little communities. Used to be socialist. by the way, and a kind of pacifist. I don't think they're pacifist anymore. So here is, let me get down just a little bit more, right down here. Okay, so this is the border. This is only about 7 or 8 miles, by the way. This whole thing, this is 7 or 8 miles. Okay, and this is Khan Yunis. So the two big centers were Gaza City, which was up there, and Khan Yunis down here. Israel right away, immediately, because their military is brilliant, by the way. Immediately they cut Gaza in half. And you wanted to go from north to south, you had to go through them. So they all now have kind of congregated in here. And they have, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks really, been moving people out of Rafah and moving them north. Now, some of the people in Rafah are trying to come into Egypt. You know what Egypt is doing? Egypt is building a compound, basically in here, right in here. They hold about 60 to 80,000 people at most. And if any of the Palestinians escape into Egypt, they're going to be kept there so they can be sent back, because Egyptians will not take Palestinians. I want to repeat that. Egyptians will not take Palestinians. Biden wants to take Palestinians, but Egypt won't. Jordan, in a million years, won't take Palestinians. And they killed thousands and thousands of Jordanians. They wiped out a lot of the Lebanese Jewish and Christian community. And Lebanon is a hellhole now. And they will tell you, if they didn't let the Palestinians in, it wouldn't have happened. The king of Jordan, you can't even ask him to take a Palestinian. And the thing that drives me nuts is his wife is Palestinian, half. Maybe she doesn't want them either, because they'll kill people. Why doesn't Sisi want them? Because they will work with the Muslim Brotherhood to overthrow him. The terrorism, the hatred, the insane pathological anger and homicidal feeling is built into them at a very early age. Nobody's making that up. It's in the textbooks that you see, given to them by the United Nations. That's on their side. That's equally as terroristic. You think of the United Nations as a peacekeeping force? I know the United Nations to be, by and large, a group of criminals. You look at their votes. They have countries like China and Cuba running the Human Rights Commission. I mean, it's ridiculous. They must think everybody in America is stupid except Trump and me. But right here is where they want to get rid of the last group of Hamas and probably get Sinwar, who's the head. Although Sinwar now is putting out that I got nothing to do with it anymore. And the Palestinians are saying we don't want him anymore because he lost. Think a whole bunch of garbage. They're trying to keep him alive. The really important ones, by the way, who are billionaires, are having a great time in Qatar. And Biden does nothing to put pressure on the government of Qatar to get them. Nor does he put any pressure on the government of Qatar to get the Americans back, because Biden, have you noticed, doesn't give a shit about Americans. Look at all the people we've lost in Afghanistan. Look at all the people we've lost to fentanyl. Does he care? Look at all the children, 80,000 children missing, and he keeps the border open. And he says things like, "Oh, give me control of the border patrol." What? What? Give you control of the border patrol? You have control of the border patrol.
It's almost like he's not all there in the head.
Only that, it's really, our press is not all there in the head. The people who respond, how do you even listen to that and not go crazy? What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
Have control of the border patrol? Who do you think controls the border patrol, Biden?
Yeah, and they let him. And you're right. A majority of the press.
He wants a bill to give him the power to do it, when by executive order he changed everything. When we had the border for the first time, this is an absolute number.
Yeah,
Since last year was either the lowest or the second lowest group of illegals that came through.
That's right.
And every indication was it was going to get squeezed down maybe another 20, 30, 40%. It was also one of the lower years for fentanyl in a long time. And all of a sudden it gets replaced within less than a year with a record of fentanyl deaths, a record, and illegal entries. And now it isn't even a record. Now it's ridiculous. You're talking about good presidents and bad presidents. There's no president that's been, he's 200 to 300% higher than the worst American president on illegal immigration. Even his communist trained friend, Obama, Prince Obama, the numbers weren't as bad.
They're just they're coming in by the tens of thousands
don't
and
know.
sometimes one day.
We don't know who they are, which is now there's an article today, and Dr. Maria will be very tuned to this because she comes from New Hampshire. The northern border has now set records for illegal entry. Now, the numbers are much lower, but it may be that the entries are much more high value because some of them may actually have come down to Mexico. And the cartel will promise you for the right amount of money to get you in without detection. So you've got at least three types of people we're talking about. You got the people who come in, declare amnesty falsely. Only 5% of them turn out to be entitled to it. And that's probably high. There's the group that we call gotaways. We actually had a chance to grab them. We may have even had our hands on them, but they got away. So they're about 20% more, maybe 30. And then there are, we never saw them. We never saw them goes up as the number of people that we apprehend goes up because our border patrol becomes distracted.
Mayor Julie, you mentioned New Hampshire, and I do know that the illegals coming across that northern border from Canada is up 800% in New Hampshire alone. But it's up very high, like in Buffalo, New York, and other border states. But isn't it true that I'm racking my brain seeing if I'm right about this? Did one of the 9/11 hijackers come through Canada?
Yes.
Cross the border that?
100%. 100%.
That's,
And other the
good point.
Islamics have been using the northern border quite a bit. It's not only them. I mean, even going back before 9/11, the early days of Islamic terrorism, the Canadian border was used, but it was in the 1990s, somewhat before September 11, that the Islamic terrorists kind of entered into a conspiracy with the cartels. Up until then, the cartels weren't sophisticated enough to really handle dealing with the Islamic terrorists. They were just really local gangs. The Colombians really controlled the drug trade. The unintended consequence of destroying the Colombian cartels, which, by the way, a series of presidents contributed to, Republican and Democrat, was they weren't watching Mexico. So the Mexicans started taking over little by little, little by little. Then they started making deals with the Islamic terrorists so they could get a big fortune. And then they started making deals with other organized crime groups. Finally, the big money 20 years ago came from China. China has really funded most of their becoming a sophisticated group, has even trained a lot of them, sends a lot of them for training to other organized crime groups. So if you want to say this is part of the Chinese effort to take over the United States, you wouldn't be far from wrong, which may be why Biden is so soft on it. Yeah. He owes them a lot. I mean, there can no longer be any explanation for Biden other than treason. No man could do this much damage to his country and have been paid by the countries that he's helping. I mean, he's dumb enough and demented enough to do the damage. It's just too damn coincidental that the damage happens to benefit the countries that gave his family millions and millions and millions of dollars. From the day he gave away the Bagram Air Base, I said the guy's a traitor. What American president is going to give away an air base 400 miles from China?
That's right.
except somebody who hates our country. And why we keep them? Because all they think about is their own power, their own money.
Mayor, may I ask you a favor?
It's horrible. Anybody who loves this country, it makes you want to cry. There's also the Iran envoy, Robert Mulley, since April,
Malley, yeah.
Since April of 2023, he's had his clearance taken away. We know he's a spy, but we get no report on him. He was spying for Iran when Prince Obama was in office. Who the hell knows what Prince Obama knows about? How come nobody ever questions that guy for giving cash to terrorists? If I gave cash to terrorists, you'd put me in jail. Instead, you want Fanny, quite contrary, to put me in jail for being a lawyer.
There's approximately 3 and maybe more Iranian spies in our government.
This guy was right up Obama's backside. He helped to do the deal that Trump said was the worst deal ever made by anyone. Trump did away with it in the last 4 years. Biden's been begging for it and making Iran rich as a result of that. While they kill us, and they kill the Israelis.
You know, one thing about the Chinese Communist Party, they can see the long game. So they've been talking about this for a while, their dominance of America. And you're right, it is too coincidental. The money that they gave Biden and all of this is happening under the Biden administration, lest we not forget those spy balloons that got a tour
Bingo.
practically from us through our country. We never did anything about it when they were above our military bases. Can I ask you a favor, Mayor Giuliani?
You should ask me if they've done.
And please indulge me. I want to let your audience know that I have the privilege several times of opening Mayor Giuliani's fan mail, which he gets a lot of fan mail, and they often ask for things like for him to autograph something, and then they send a self-addressed stamped envelope. But usually it's because they honor or respect the mayor. This was a very personal story, so I'd love to read it to you. Now I'll read it all to you.
No. I'm gonna. Okay, go ahead.
An excerpt. Hello, Mr. Giuliani. There is no way you deserve the unjust and unfair treatment you have been exposed to. If the world were more honest and courageous, great leaders like you would be celebrated and held up as examples for everyone to follow. Captain Tom Mayer, whose medical condition and outlook you improved, Mayor Giuliani, with your most kind letter to him, told me about a time he saw you at the Maria Regina Church in Seaford in July 2000. He said you asked the congregation where Inspector Falco's mom was, and then you walked down the pews and brought her up to sit in the front row where she properly belonged. Captain Mayer was there also, paying his respects to Inspector Anthony Falco and his family. Tom said many people there were deeply moved by your kindness, sensitivity, and respect for Inspector Falco's mom. What a great example of your leadership and grace. Rudy, you are one of the best men I know, with high integrity, and the people know it, the people value it.
No, I get embarrassed with that.
So I thank you for indulging me.
She did it on my radio show too, so I thought it was okay if she does it now. But I do have a belief here that I share a bit with George Steinbrenner and Donald Trump. The things you're rewarded for in this life, you already got rewarded for. And the things that are kept secret, God rewards you for. So I just lost one.
Yeah, this is beautiful, and it's from a gentleman, Earl Henry Holt, who's also an artist who has a particular painting called Amazing Grace, Amazing Dedication, and is meant to honor fallen law enforcement officers. Earl had presented it to many
We have the picture.
and he would like to present you with one.
I have a picture. Amazing Grace just walked in, by the way. That's why I went like this. That's my granddaughter. Grace. This is the painting. I don't know if it's the one he wants to give to me, or it's this is Amazing Grace.
Yes, that is.
And this is one of his paintings.
That, I believe that's the one he would like to give to you.
Right there.
Yeah, and you could see the blue Blue Lives Matter, the blue flag.
Yeah. Well, I would very much be honored to have it, and we'll show it on the show,
That's right.
and we'll have him on.
What a
You know, the
great
badge,
letter.
you see the badge with the black across it?
Yeah.
That's
Let me
what
show that.
police officers do when they're mourning
All
They're
elections.
mourning another police officer. My uncle, first time I ever saw that was one of my uncles who was a police sergeant. He had it on his badge.
What-
I said,
what-
what was that? That was about 6 or 7. And I said, what is that?
And you should,
My uncle said,
that's right.
one police officer was shot and killed.
and you should see up close just the respect and love. I'm going to use the word
It's mutual.
love
It's mutual.
the
really mutual.
NYPD members of NYPD have for the mayor. Without going in, I mean that I want to leave on that letter. The letter was so beautiful, but I do want to say, I've been pulled over. I was speeding, not by much, questionable,
You're
but I
not
was going a
supposed
little
to
bit
talk
fast.
about this.
I know.
Shut
We're
up.
not naming names. We're not naming names, but I'll keep it short. I was pulled over, not doing anything, no
Police
major
officer
violations.
Forgot himself. He saw me and he forgot he said,
"Oh my God." He was no. He was apologetic. It wasn't just, "Oh, it's Mayor Giuliani." It's, "Oh my goodness." He felt bad that he pulled us over. He felt bad. Like, "Oh my goodness."
Should give me a ticket.
And he didn't, not only did he didn't give us a ticket, he wanted a picture with the mayor. He was so respectful. It was just incredible. But it's something that this man has earned, right?
No, I haven't earned that.
Look, there are famous people that
Police
are
officer
famous for
used
different
his
reasons.
discretion.
No,
He
this
used his discretion.
he did, but
weren't going
I'm not referring to this one incident, right? I'm just saying in general, he's earned this respect from the NYPD and the FDNY because of the leadership he showed. Yes,
So
yeah.
please take out of this loving police officers.
Any police officer will shake their hand, and he honestly prays for them, all of them, for their safety. But it's a mutual respect.
Right, and this is an important point to make at a time when law enforcement is under fire from so many disrespectful politicians. It's important to remember there was a time when we had leaders in this country and in places like New York City who weren't afraid to stand up for law enforcement. And it's insane that we even have to talk about it in this way, but you all know it, you see it up close. And so we're not going to belabor the point, Mayor, but I think it's important that we remember what real leadership looks like.
I was going to do the funny story next, but I'm going to
Okay.
do this one instead. So Trump gets hit by New York for 355 million, a number that bears no relation to anything.
Insane.
There's no way that judge has anything to base it on. Since nobody lost money and people actually made money, how do you come to that number? To assess damages, if we have a system of law, not just Democrat dictatorship, there's got to be a relationship to some kind of economic situation. So nobody lost money. How do you come up with 355 million? The most you can do is to say, I don't agree with your numbers, Trump, but nobody got hurt and people made money. What's going on? Except,
Therefore, there's no fraud.
it's not. How can they? I mean, or the fraud doesn't matter. It's like the tree falling in the forest and nobody hears it. I mean, the reality is we got enough problems, and this is the point I'm going to make. New York is spending all its time, I don't know, millions to try that ridiculous case, and then millions to try Bragg's even more ridiculous case. And Bragg should be going to jail for violating his oath of office and for aiding and abetting the death of a lot of people by putting criminals on the street that he knew shouldn't be on the street. Instead, he's trying Trump for something that's barred by the statute of limitations. And that there are thousands of these non-disclosure agreements. It's never been illegal before, except for Trump. And it's supposed to be a campaign contribution, but half the experts say it's not. So this is an arguable, crazy theory just to prevent a Republican president. And is it an accident that every one of the prosecutors is a scumbag?
That's right. Well,
Bragg's a scumbag. He's a Soros scumbag. Fanny, I'm not going to call her that because she's a woman, but you heard her testimony. You make up your own mind about Fanny, and whether the boyfriend, who I know isn't qualified to try the case because he questioned me for 4 or 5 hours and didn't know what the hell he was doing. This guy should give the money back. He didn't know what he was doing in the grand jury. And I got to tell you, I know what to do in a grand jury. I've done about 50,000 times more than he has because he's done none. And what about Smith? Smith has been excoriated at least twice for basically framing innocent people. And our crooked attorney general picks him. Now, you're the attorney general, and you want to tell me you want a fair trial for a man, and you go pick a prosecutor who got reversed by the Supreme Court 9-0 for destroying a man's career?
Bob McDonnell, governor of Virginia.
For something that wasn't a crime? Well, he's doing it all over again. Those are the three. That's it. Those are the three prosecutors. Not only don't you have a Republican, you don't have an honest person there.
That's right. And it's unfortunate. And I wish more people in New York, in the business community, in the real estate community, would stand up and say something about
They're going to
this.
drive real estate people out of New York. I mean, if I look at it and say, I mean, I know what they've done to me. I know what the Bar Association has done to me. And I will have a lot to say about that because I don't expect a fair decision from them. I mean, I'd eat my hat if I got a fair decision, and I will. I wish I get one, and I get acquitted because I should be. I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, there are lawyers who've done things so much worse than me that they let go because they're Democrat pals of theirs. But here's a state that has the highest taxes in the country, or the second highest. It's lost the most people in the last 3 or 4 years of anyone. And that's about the best indication that your state stinks when people leave. I gotta leave. It stinks. Democrats have been running it too long. The only states people leave are the ones that Democrats run. The states they're going to are the states the Republicans run. It has the highest cost of living. Its corruption is mind-blowing. You just compare the budget of Florida, the budget of New York, and you can figure out the corruption. Florida has more people than we do, and it has half the budget of New York State. Our services, I live in both places. The services are better in Florida. So what's that money? What's that extra $150 billion going for? For every crooked Democratic piece of crap that they can pay 3 times for, like Hochul did when she bought tests for COVID for twice what California paid, and then got a couple of $100 million contribution to a PAC from the company. This is what they do. Adams spends billions on these people coming in. You think he really spends it on all those people coming in? Or you think he spends it on pals? And who knows, relatives. I don't know about relatives, but certainly pals. So there's corruption in New York you could pay attention to. Real corruption. There's real fraud where poor people get cheated like hell by politicians. You think the politicians in the Black community have ever done anything for them? No, I know they didn't because I had to do it. Harlem never got anything done for it until I became mayor because they all left. They all came into public office, without anything. They all left multimillionaires. Meanwhile, Harlem, until I became mayor, nobody would put a national business there because there was so much crime. But the politicians who represented it never did a damn thing for it, except become millionaires. So that's what we do in New York. And then we spend our time prosecuting Trump. Our daily crime is going up. Our new mayor is worse than our last one. He just talks better. Well, he doesn't really talk better. He talks like an idiot. God has talked to him. He actually compared himself to Jesus recently. Crime is up since he became mayor. And now we've got a massive illegal migrant crime problem that he and Biden created. Didn't exist. They brought him in. Come here, come to New York. Come to New York and rape us. Come to New York and rob us. Come to New York and kill us. How about the ones that beat up the cops and Bragg let them out of jail? And Adams is afraid to say anything about Bragg because he'll get investigated by Bragg just the way he got investigated by Biden.
Wow.
Shut his mouth.
Right. You know what? You're right. And he'll likely get reelected. I mean, barring something. And look, it's baffling to me, Mayor, when you see. I mean, I've seen a difference and I've only been there for a little bit over a year in New York City, and I've seen a difference in a little over a year. You literally have gangs of folks, and walking around Midtown and you see it there, and you're seeing more and more of it. And now we're seeing the violence come out. We saw a shooting a couple weeks ago. We believe a migrant was involved in that shooting. The cops getting beat up in Times Square,
And the migrant throwing the finger.
and then the migrant
The
gets
illegal
given the
migrant
fingers with a smug look on his
the
face.
finger, which we actually had, this was the prior mayor, they're actually going to pass a law that would be illegal to call them illegal. I mean, have they ever read the First Amendment?
It's like we're self-destructing as a
Does it
country.
mean these communist fascists?
It's like a slow motion
That
self-destruction.
headline is describing the Biden administration. Biden team at each other's throats over border bungling. How about border invasion? Aides throw rivals under bus.
Yeah.
Kamala inept. Dodges blame.
It's incredible.
We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's great. It's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
Welcome back. And I want to remind everyone to take their balance in nature, the veggies, the fruits. I've already taken mine for the day, which is why I feel so feisty. I know you see the pizza. I have to say goodnight to the people from Newsmax, but before I do, I want to tell you that's a slice of Detroit pizza. And this gentleman here comes from Michigan. And there's an article today saying that Detroit-style pizza has invaded New York. It just so happens that about a week ago, Ted got me
Detroit style?
occasions Detroit pizza.
Yep.
And I am going to discuss my expert analysis of everyone in New York is a pizza, particularly Italian Americans in New York.
Oh, I know. I've learned that. Yeah.
So we're going to discuss it in more detail, but we do have to say goodnight to the Newsmax people. And we'll ask them to come back tomorrow night, and maybe we'll have some pizza, different kinds of pizzas. But
yeah, we got
this pizza of all is our friend Anthony.
Anthony from Grimaldi's.
Grimaldi.
That's right.
All right, give him.
Head down to Grimaldi's down in. There's a couple locations, I believe.
Well,
Pick them up in the New York area.
Would be the most fun to go to. It's the old Limelight.
The old Limelight.
Yeah, it's on. We'll get the. Why don't you get the address?
Yeah, and shout out to Adi and Maya and the Limelight crowd. I've actually talked to some folks that work there, and they're so excited about.
It has a little line, but we're going to do a show from there.
We are.
So when we get back to New York in a few weeks, we're going to do a show from there, and maybe we'll do a couple of shows from there so you get used to it. It's really interesting. You know, it's open until 5 a.m.
That's right.
Go hang out there, and I used to love.
You used to go. Well, Maya and Danielle, two people involved with the Limelight, they said, that you did a lot of wonders for everybody when you were as mayor, right? Even the clubs.
Then I'll go for sure if they can say that. I mean, I'm like Trump. He praised me.
And you're there. Yeah. I know how to get on the mayor's good side, right? Yeah. Compliment his tie.
Give me a treat. Good boy. Well, so thank you to the Newsmax people.
Yes. Goodbye.
Now, this is soccer time, and that is a picture of Detroit-style pizza. Here's the difference. Detroit-style pizza is
Square.
It really is a variation of Sicilian pizza. Sicilian pizza is large dough, squares, made in a square pot. You can see the squares right there, right? See the squares right there? Yeah. Yeah, if you get up real big, you can see the squares.
Yeah, that's square.
There's the
You
squares
can
right
see it.
there.
Yeah.
There's the square. And it's the pizza is about the Detroit pizza about this thick. The Sicilian pizza, honestly, Sicilian pizza is thicker. It's about like this.
The crust, but it's a little
Now,
bit even
so I
thicker.
read the history of it. In 1949, a couple came to Detroit from Sicily and started doing Sicilian pizza, but they made it a little thinner. They put more sauce on it more cheese on it.
Yes,
And
cheese on the bottom
The
too.
Sicilian pizza is drenched in a lot of sauce.
Yeah.
Less cheese. They used more cheese, less dough, but still considerably more dough than what we would consider the New York pizza, which is really thin crust or moderately thin crust, which would be Neapolitan. The Neapolitan pizza would be the circular pizza.
Yeah.
Where the dough is about this big.
Okay.
And then the crust comes out on the sides.
So that's different than thin crust, or similar.
Is a more dramatic version of that.
Of Neapolitan. That's a classic pizza.
Neapolitan
Neapolitan is a classic style. Would you say?
Neapolitan is the pizza that was first introduced in the United States, and Sicilian pizza came much later. And Sicilian pizza really was made by bakers, not by pizza makers.
Is that the square?
Well, because it needed that big piece of dough, whereas pizza is much smaller. When you do pizza, remember,
and you spin it, the dough, and it's like this thin layer.
You roll it.
Yeah.
You're trying to get
roll it.
Think about how you make pizza.
Spin it.
You do it like my best friend was an expert pizza maker, and one time in a snow, he was my deputy mayor and my campaign manager and my best friend. And one night, everybody was stuck. Terrible snowfall. People were stuck at 911. They couldn't go home.
Yeah.
We got a guy to open a pizza place right near City Hall, and we made 26 pizzas. And Peter made 4 or 5 of them and showed me how to do it.
The great Peter Powers.
Yeah.
And
then I paid the guy. Now, why was it important that I paid him? Peter and I had only a certain amount of cash. We gave him $190 or $200. And then when I gave the guy an award later on, as I always used to do for people who did great things for people in the city, and it turned out in his past, I won't identify him, but in his past, he had bribed the New York City building guy, and they wanted to make a big deal of my getting pizza for free for him. And luckily, we got a receipt.
You paid.
That's why I got $198 in cash, plus about another 30 or 40 bucks in tips.
Another night,
press shut up.
Another night, we're gonna do the Yankees ring. That reminds me of the Yankee ring story, but we'll save that. Back to the pizza.
They refuse to admit that I'm honest. That's why they're trying to put me. They're trying to.
Well, of course, the press used to get called. He's too honest. He's too much of a.
They're a bunch of creeps. They really
are.
The
New York press corps, right? These are the same
dishonest creeps.
They gave you the credit back in the 90s, and then I see the same guys outside your apartment in 2024.
They forget.
They're fickle.
Whatever.
Some, not all.
Whatever works for them. That's it.
I do want to preface that with some, not all, when it comes to the press.
Come on.
Look what they're doing to you.
But you look at this country 4 years ago, you look at this country now, and you don't even have to think. You don't even think about who the president should be.
It's busy, yeah.
I mean, we're in 2 wars right now.
And if it were 100%.
We're in 2 wars that this complete traitor doesn't know his way out of. And now he's going to turn on Israel. He's going to turn on Israel. I mean, this is mind-boggling. Hamas is a insane, barbaric, and they teach all the people of Palestine to be that way. If they're not that way, they're just lucky. So you have to assume that if you went to a school in Hamas or in Gaza or in the West Bank, you've been brainwashed to hate Jews and to hate Americans. It's not like just Hamas. It's the whole population that hate us. A couple of exceptions. But for our safety, you got to assume that when they're brainwashed from the time they're 2, and you take polls and 80% of them support Hamas, they want to kill us. And the idea that Netanyahu wants to wipe out Hamas is a credit to a great leader to save his own people. Because if he doesn't wipe them out, Hamas makes it easy. They tell him they want to wipe out the Jewish people. So now if you're Jewish and you're the head of the Jewish state, what do you have to do? And why are we going to stop them? Do you think they love us? They'd come after us next. Instead, we pretend that we support Israel. And then we're going to go to the UN and I don't know what we're going to have them blocked, have them condemned. I mean, the UN, we should never use the UN hates us. The US hates America. They hate Americans. And having been the mayor of New York and the US attorney, the UN is filled with crooks. It's filled with entirely dishonest people. Again, not everybody, but a hell of a lot more than you think. What do you think most of these countries are? Most of these countries are run by dictators and thieves. And their time in office is to take money. And their time of coming to the UN is to get rich, to steal. That's right. To pay bills.
That's right.
I mean, it is a highly undesirable group of people. And the idea that it's good or bad for New York is very debatable. Yeah, it brings a lot of international traffic in New York. It also costs the city an enormous amount of money that it's not reimbursed for, and an awful lot of crimes that go unresolved or punished, including horrible things done to children.
Oh my goodness. And I had this more of a romantic view of the UN. Not totally was on board, but before I came to New York,
more than the usual percentage.
Mayor opened my eyes.
of abuse of women is
So
rampant among the UN people. The cultures they come from, the police called, women beaten, can't do anything about it. Can't do anything about it. Now, if you're tough like I was
going to say, I have a feeling you didn't take that as
oh, hell no. I
tell Mayor Giuliani,
did
you're
everything I
saying
could to uncover their diplomatic immunity. First of all, I never accepted their word. And a lot of times they lied. Half the times they lied, so I was able to prosecute them.
they didn't actually have it.
Predecessors never.
No, they love being invited. They love being in with the UN crowd, right?
Russians beat up cops. Russians wouldn't throw the people out of the United States. I made it very uncomfortable for the Russian embassy to be in New York. Very uncomfortable. And they got rid of them.
Is that why they're in DC now?
You're not going to beat up my cops. I'm sorry. You beat up my cops, you take me on.
Man, New York could use by the way, the current mayor is supposedly a former cop.
Yeah, right. Former cop who's afraid to brag, so he doesn't stand up for his cops. You mean Bragg lets out the people who beat up his cop? He doesn't say a damn thing because he's afraid. He's afraid.
He's afraid. That's exactly what's going on.
Like I just told you about the judge who has my case, right? I'm wondering if he's honest or not. I don't really give a damn. I'm not afraid of him. I didn't do anything wrong. If he doesn't throw that case out, there's something wrong with him. Nikki Haley. I got to talk about Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is becoming vicious. She's becoming a viper. You know, Nikki Haley promised to support the winner of the Republican primary. She promised it as a condition of her being in the debates. Now she says that I don't think that I'll support Trump.
She must have something. I mean, there's something going on.
Isn't that what you call a liar?
100%.
Now, how many people have told us she's a liar? Just about everybody in South Carolina. The night that they all came up to Manchester, New Hampshire to endorse Trump was amazing. It wasn't just Governor McMaster, who, loves Trump, and I love Governor McMaster. I mean, not that kind of love, but skill and love.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, McMaster. He used to work for me in the Justice Department. And I don't think he'd feel funny if I said he used to work for me. I helped to pick him as U.S. attorney.
Mm-hmm.
But McMaster used to be our lieutenant governor. He's supporting Trump heart and soul. Every single.
Oh, he loves you.
Every
McMaster
single
loves
public
you. I saw
official in South Carolina says, please don't make a president, please. And but this thing about, okay, she's going to run against him. He gave her her appointment. Okay. DeSantis did the same thing. But now she's going to break her word. Now, how about this one? This is the one for which they just throw her out of the primary. She says that Trump, let Putin feel much more emboldened than he ever has.
What? That's so backwards, Mayor. That's the exact opposite.
President Vladimir Putin, she told Trump, is feeling more emboldened than he ever has. If I recall correctly, Trump is the one who cut off the pipeline. Biden restored the pipeline for the guys who paid him millions. And then he cut off the American pipeline.
Yeah.
But how about this? This is indisputable.
Yeah.
So Putin is voracious, right? He looks at a president and he says, can I get away with it? It's just simple. I mean, you just got to use a little common sense, which Haley lacks. I mean, if she doesn't know the cause of the Civil War, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to reason with her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if she doesn't know the counties or regions of Ukraine she wants to protect with billions and billions of dollars, where she looked like a total nitwit moron when Ramaswamy nailed her. I mean, what good is she as a UN ambassador? But this one is really ridiculous. I mean, she'll say anything. This is like Biden. She'll say anything. Putin was more emboldened under Trump. Then how is it that Putin attacked Georgia under Bush, attacked Ukraine under Prince Obama, and attacked Ukraine again under Biden? Those are three presidents. Oh, there was one in between, Nikki. This may be as tough as the cause of slavery. I mean, the cause of the war is slavery. The one in between was Trump, and he didn't attack. So he was more emboldened under Trump. You are really stupid.
But doesn't she know better? Isn't she a lie? Isn't she lying?
She's stupid. I think she's a lightweight. How about she's a lightweight? What the hell does she ever do as governor?
How are you?
What did she ever do as governor? DeSantis has a whole bunch of achievements as governor, right?
I can't name one thing she did as governor.
I know what she did as governor.
I can't name one thing that she did as governor.
Went from 50th in education to 48th.
And to be the ambassador to the United Nations for the United States and to make a comment like that, it's either a lie or, like you said, she just isn't all there.
He emboldened Putin.
The only president, like you said, since
the only president the guy hasn't invaded under in the last 20 years.
He's the only president, literally the only one where he hasn't.
And she knows he put much heavier sanctions on him than anyone. She knows that he canceled the pipeline. He socked him in the head. Sure, he said all these nice things. That's part of his style. That's how he negotiates your pants off.
How I got look.
They're not smart enough to negotiate the way he does. They really are not. They're a bunch of people who probably wouldn't make it in private life.
Oh my, the president took Nikki Haley out of, I don't know what she was doing before this, and made her ambassador to the UN, gave her this big role, and now here she is running against him and lying about his foreign policy record. It's totally absurd. It's wrong. And if for any other reason, loyalty, the fact that she can do this to someone who did so much for her in her career.
We talked about Fanny, right?
That's right.
And
a little bit.
Here are a whole bunch of letters to the New York Post. I like to talk about Fanny because she wants to put me in jail for the rest of my life. Fannie Willis court case, a disgraceful performance. I think that's understating it. And then there's a whole article about her father who taught her to use cash. Well, he probably did because he was one of the founding members of the Black Panthers who liked to kill cops.
Well, before we go, should we play?
That's a really good background for a DA. I'm a Black Panther who called police the enemy. That's on record, by the way, recordings. He also described the police as an occupying army. He was in favor of defunding the police.
Wow.
He referred to white politicians as Texas crackers.
Wow.
No wonder she hates us.
Yeah.
That's where she was.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Mayor, we're well into soccer time. What a lively show for a Monday night. We ask folks to please subscribe to the Mayor over on X. Hit that subscribe button. Become a subscriber and have access to some exclusive content. We got to put one up. We haven't put one up in a few days, so we'll work on one
tomorrow.
We'll do one tomorrow. So be sure to subscribe to the Mayor on X. Of course, support all of our great sponsors. Balance of Nature, Tunnel to Towers, My Pillow, QUX. These are all just real good products and services.
Tomorrow we will do one, probably two, but we'll do one on what's behind Biden's double cross of Israel. What lies behind his now almost completely transparent double cross of Israel by siding with the most un-American organization in the world, with the possible exception of Red China, and that's the United Nations. There's something really sick behind that, and I think we can expose it. And why don't we end with our picture of Ronald Reagan one more time? Okay.
Yeah.
This does me good to look at his face. Actually, I tell you what. After they took them all apart, we're not going to put that up.
What are you looking for?
Yeah.
President Trump?
Yeah. Let's go with this one right here.
Let's go with that one. Or that one. This one's better.
Like that one?
Yeah.
All right.
We get it, blow it up though, make it bigger. There we go. That's a good one.
All right.
Yeah, there's our president. Yeah.
So much like, remember, 4 years, no Russian invasions, no Hamas invasions. He left. Let's end with one point that alone should have him elected president of the United States over any Democrat. He left this world to the crook in the White House at peace, by and large. So if there were wars, there were minor wars. There are now two major wars going on that have the possibility of becoming much wider wars. There are even people talking about there possibly being world wars. Putin the other day threatened to use nuclear weapons if he should be thrown out of Ukraine. You think if he was president, he'd be doing that? I'll tell you why you know he wouldn't be doing it, because he didn't. You don't have to think, you don't have to, like, if you elect a president, as we normally do, we usually elect a president, we don't know. We have the best feelings about him. I had good feelings about Trump when he got elected because I knew him. Turned out to be a much better president than I thought. I mean, who knows? He could have turned out to be a bad president. I didn't think he would, but he could. You just don't know. But he's already been president. We know the results. The worst thing about him is some people didn't like what he said. They like what he did. Right? You can't find a single complaint about what he did. The economy was much, much better. But most important, people weren't dying like this. People weren't dying of fentanyl like this. We weren't being invaded. And we didn't have two major wars going on that threatened to engulf us in a world war. What are we doing? We're going for the brainwashing, you know? Come on. Use that American common sense. And this is the guy we got to get in. All right? So go to Rudy Giuliani and hit that subscribe button, and we'll get behind the whole double crossing of our ally, which is really double crossing us. When you side with the UN, you're double crossing the United States. They hate us.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get behind the election too, give you some ideas on what's going on with the election. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but we'll put it on confidential.
That's right.
Because there are a couple of things that we can say more freely that way.
Well, thanks for having me on tonight, Mayor.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Ted. You did a great job. And
we'll be back tomorrow.
yeah, we will. God bless America. Huh?
WABC Radio, 3 p.m. And then, of
3
course,
p.m.
right
tomorrow,
here.
you call up, ask some good questions. We got a good conversation with Jimmy from Brooklyn today about Ukraine. He's a real expert on communism. He's much more in favor of like not really caring whether they're corrupt or not, but just beating the Russians and the Soviets. And I sympathize with that because I want to beat Putin badly. But I just don't think throwing money at them is going to do it because there's no accountability for that money. It's just like what they do with social policy. They throw money at it, and the black communities get worse because the black politicians steal the money, as well as the white politicians.
Okay.
Any Democrat get their hands on it will pull out money, white or black. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, God bless the people of Israel and pray for them, please. God bless the people of the United States and pray for us. And God bless America.
Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,